this is shooting.
Greetings and a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you very much indeed for joining Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, where we discuss pertinent issues of peace and sustainability around the world and across Africa. I'm George Mutalemwa, moderating this session on behalf of the Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA. Our themes today are a universal paradigm shift and the Islamic economy from divine command to global economic force. We are honored to have two distinguished speakers, Moeen Yaseen, who is founding director of Global Vision 2000, and Baba Yunus Mohammed, president of the Africa Islamic Economic Foundation, AFRIF. Thank you, Moeen and Baba, for being with us today. And please do join me in welcoming Moeen Yaseen and Baba Yunus Mohammed to Global Peace today. Over to you, Moeen. Please start.
Thank you, George, and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, whatever everyone else is. Okay, so I'm just going to dive in because there's quite a lot to get through. And initially I was asked to speak, and I work very collaboratively online, etc. I asked one of my African, associates from the Africa Islamic Economic Foundation to join us, and he has, so I'm very delighted. He's quite a distinguished scholar. He's also got UK connections like me from London, Scotland and London in my case. But yeah, okay, so it's a 1-2. It'll be me and then Baba Yunus, and then we'll open it up. It's interesting that today's event by chance coincides with the gathering in the United Nations in New York, where the high and mighty are trying to do something. I don't want to comment on what they want to do on the 80th anniversary, but all I can say is that the world is in a mess. Maybe it's always been in a mess, one could argue, from Adam and Eve. Yeah, I take a very holistic spiritual perspective. So, we've got 88 billion people now, so we were bound to have challenges. However, we've got a lot of assets to deal with problems in the world. So, there's no excuses to say that we couldn't solve the problems of humanity, but things seem to be on a downward spiral. So anyway, a couple of quick words about myself and background. My name is Moeen Yaseen. I'm from the UK, and I was trained at Edinburgh University in the early 80s. And I was doing business studies, but then revolutions happened in the Middle East. So I shifted. So I'm really self-taught, actually. If you were to pigeonhole me, you can't. I developed, a trajectory of self-education out with any political or indeed sectarian association. And indeed, the more I understood the Western world, I realized there wasn't much freedom of speech way back then. So I thought that the work should continue with a think tank. Because I think I still hold to that view that that there is, thought control in the world, and it's getting it's an understatement actually, thought control and censorship. So one way out of that was to just develop my own think tank, and I'm pleased that we've now got. Using modern technology, I'm not an expert, but over 10 to 20,000 videos from world experts all over the place, and about 15 minimum million hits. So, it does get attraction. So today, what I want to focus on today is, it's not new really. I'm just tying together some of the work we've already done. So we're a think tank based in the UK in 2000. We specialize in the global, the global political economy. And my specialty was the Islamic world. And what I want to talk about is immediately what I mean by the universal paradigm shift, and then home into Africa, and then some solutions. That's where the 10 Commandments come in. So let me get on to that. So George, can you hear me now? Can you hear me clearly?
Can. Loud and clear.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, so here we go. So basically, the Global Vision 2000 had a slogan, still does, called moving towards the universal paradigm shift. I had that 2 decades ago. It's not new, that terminology. And that's when I was investigating as a non-technologist the rise of satellite television and the internet, leaving aside content. I realized something was happening. I don't know exactly what, but something was happening. And so I thought, yes, to think global really is possible, really, really possible. And indeed, there was a project with the European Space Agency and the Vatican, but that was quite a jump to capture. But anyway, now the subtitle or the clarification of the universal paradigm shift is the century of the 5 Cs. To contextualize that terminology. Again, that's not new. What I'm saying is not new. I had that over 2 decades ago, almost 25 years now. And I talked about the century, we were coming at the millennium, the century of the 5 Cs. What I meant was, given my independent view, was to think outside the box, which I've always tried to really, not referring to capitalism or communism, which are 2 big Cs, perhaps still relevant. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to use the word C, how do I contextualize this new millennium? And I came to put together 5 Cs together. And the first one is very relevant. It's going to be very, very relevant even now, when we are now moving towards what I would call technocracy. Those who study where capitalism is going. Some of the experts like Patrick Wood, we've done eschatology seminars, 12 of them. Some experts talk about technocracy, not technology, but technocracy, with strong Silicon Valley moorings, and transhumanism. So the concept of consciousness, or the global brain, whatever you want to call it, is very pertinent. Indeed, the battle, despite what you might think I'm going to say, whether it's good or evil or whatever, black or white, is actually about control of the brain, about consciousness. That is the real battle we're going to face, are facing, are going to face. So the first C is consciousness. Second, the ability globally, it's not just connections, it's global connectivity and communications. And also the economics has made it even more practical with the mobile phone, smartphones, etc. And communities of collaboration, new concepts of how we can consult with each other and empower each other. So these are my 5 Cs. The first one, I would humbly argue, is the Islamic concept of Tawheed, the concept of oneness. However, many Muslim scholars don't necessarily use the word consciousness, but I'm going to define consciousness as the essence of the key doctrine of global Islam, which has been demonized, that the concept of oneness of humanity, oneness of spirit and matter, material and physical, etc. So consciousness is at the center, and then, as I mentioned, global connectivity, communications, and communities of collaboration. So these are the 5 Cs. Now let me dive into the dirty world that we're living in, nitty-gritty. So firstly, I want to focus on Africa because, this audience focuses on Africa, I understand, or perhaps in its own way, maybe in a globalized way. The first thing I want to say is that I remember using the word racism even in Scotland, which people do not realize was the second city of the empire. That's where I grew up, and then in London. Is that the more I look at the word racism, it is still very, very relevant, unfortunately. So basically, my opening remark coming to Africa or discussing Africa is that we're living in a world, again, this is not new, in which white, people might feel offended, but I'm just trying to conceptualize, white is right and might is right. This is nothing new, it's in my writings. And so basically, and also the implication of these remarks is that the world that we're living in, which we think we are, in a post-colonial, decolonized world, I'm afraid, if you look at all the facts and figures, I do not accept that. Maybe partial political independent world, independence movements, etc., but definitely not economic, financial, dare I say, military independence. So there is subservience and subjugation going on. That's why I use the word imperial dollar. On a positive side, these are my opening remarks. We're living in a world in which white is right and might is right. But on a positive side, I think the future is Africa. As an Arabist, I'm not Arabic, I'm of Indo-Pakistani origin. I'm going to argue that the definition of the Middle East, which comes from the Orientalist tradition, is flawed. You could argue, and I will argue for today, that the Arabian Peninsula, which is separated by the Red Sea, is really Africa. One can argue that, yeah? So I'm going to argue that the future is Africa, especially, God forbid, if there's a nuclear, let me put the cards on the table, if there is a nuclear war, definitely. The other main point I want to say at the beginning, before looking at the problem of Africa, or the challenge, is that certainly post-World War I, II, there was a, what you call, unipolar moment. The Americans, Pax Americana had taken over from Pax Britannica. Then the Cold War, if you want to call it multipolar, then the unipolar again, post-91, with the collapse of the Soviet Union. Definitely with the rise of the BRICS, etc., we have entered a multipolar world again. And some people, dare I say, the white-centric or Eurocentric world is not comfortable with that. Definitely not. And that explains, you could argue, the rise of people like Trump or white nationalism, whatever you want to call them. And also, I'm going to argue that this Eurocentric, white is right, might is right world, it's not fit for purpose. It's unsustainable. It is collapsing, I would argue. Americans, they're what, 4% of the world's population? Europeans, if you even add the Russians, maybe another 9%. Give and take, that's what, 12, 13%? For these countries to call the shots, the UN Security Council, 5 countries, they even said the Chinese are not white, but white or Western civilization controlled world is just out of data and not fit for purpose. I said it's collapsing. Well, we've done a lot of work, including parliamentary seminars. We've even had monetary reform experts, and we've had events in Parliament. And just look at I have no time for this today, but the US debt clock. The country is bankrupt. It's living on borrowed money and borrowed time. Over 30 trillion US dollars.
Sorry for interrupting you. Your face is not showing very well. Can you let the camera go up a little bit?
So, sorry, whose face?
One of the participants. Yeah. Your face is not showing up very well. And other people are complaining as well.
I think you need to settle properly. Maybe adjust your cameras.
George, are you there?
Yeah, we can't see your face. So I think it's so maybe you have to adjust your camera.
Me or someone else?
Yes, you.
Moeen, if you could maybe lower your seat so that we can see the whole of your face. Because of
can you see me now? Can you see me now?
Yet. Not yet. No, please go down further.
I can actually see myself on the screen.
No, but we are not seeing your head.
You are cut off above the ears.
Yeah. I'm afraid I can't do anything as long as you can hear me. Yeah.
All right, then go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for telling me anyway. Yeah. So basically, the argument I'm making is we're still living in a white Eurocentric world, shaped by Western civilization. I gave a 2-hour interview with Tony Gosling. It's on YouTube. I think we need to explain this. I'm going to argue that given the tension with the Muslim world, I'm going to argue that the rise of America or the Americas was Islamophobic. One of my friends is an expert, Scottish Muslim expert on Spanish history and Arabic, that the collapse of Muslim power in Spain, 1492, was when Columbus, and Cabot for that matter, Anglo-Saxons in the UK and Columbus, the Spaniards, started looking east. I'm going to argue that was because that the Mediterranean was an Islamic lake, under Ottoman control, controlling the trade routes, and the papacy. That's a call to prayer here in Istanbul, in case you can't hear me. So basically, the rise of America or Americas had a Islamophobic orientation. If you don't want to use the word Islamophobic, I mean, you must remember Spain expelled its Muslim population. It didn't just tolerate them. And 1609, it expelled them. So there was an Islamophobic dimension. And I would go further. 1776, that Trump, eulogized about being the light to the nations. It was set up as a free Masonic state. That's another issue on the occult history. And then that led to what you call the transatlantic slavery, connecting Britain and West Africa with what you call the Americas. And a substantial amount of the black West African slaves were Muslim. So one can argue that the rise of the Americas was Islamophobic, in which the non-whites were treated as subhumans. I'm going to go further to the Berlin Conference just now. You cannot look at Africa in isolation. Many people may have forgotten about it. 1885, what happened in Berlin. And in the Middle East, Sykes-Picot Agreement, 1915, 1916, divided the Middle East and ratified in May 1916. And we've still got that problem or problems in that region. So Africa, the carve up, the Middle East carve up, 1885, 1915, 16, and Balfour Declaration 17. And you could even argue India, Pakistan, which are at loggerheads, 1947, the division of a region which was the richest in the world. So these areas are still very volatile and not fully developed. So basically, So these are key dates, and basically coming to Africa and Berlin is that when this conference happened. They divided Africa like a cake in which every inch was up for grab, especially Belgium, Britain, France, and Germany. And it led to what is known as the scramble for Africa, its occupation, partition, and carve-up. One can argue that all the problems of Africa now are from 1885. And it's up to the new generation of Africans to realize that we're in 1885. We really are. The boundaries, for instance, how they, cut across ethnic, linguistic, racial, religious divides. And it's really imperative for the new generation and the thinkers to bang their heads to realize you're not living in 2025. You're living in 1885, if not worse. I'll explain why. I've already said that the decolonization was partial, and there's a neo-colonization. I'll explain that in a minute. So that's that about Africa, and maybe a bit more. So basically, this carve-up by white Europeans, the borders were drawn without regard, as I said, for the local people and traditions, leading to artificial borders, leading to current conflicts and tensions, and the exclusion of African reps in that meeting, in that conference, and not considering their wishes and rights. And then that led to, it wasn't just a carve-up, it was to steal African land and resources and to exploit and oppress. I won't have time to go into this. I had a conference in the House of Lords 2010. It's still relevant, where I set up something called the Roma Commission, repatriation of misappropriated money and assets. That is still very relevant. We need champions to, in other words, the Western world, including Trump, I hope he's hearing me, Macron, Stammer, they should be there should be massive movements demanding them to cough up stolen money, misappropriated assets and money, and I don't hear that. I don't hear that much from Africa, and dare I say it's to do with the subjugation through the IMF, World Bank, WTO, control of currencies, etc. That the people wouldn't even dare to ask for that. So that is still relevant. And then by 1914, 90% of Africa was under European control, which disrupted the societies, economies, and governance, and stunted the continent's development, and permitted colonization, exploitation, conflict to this day. So we got a complex legacy. I could say more on that, but I'll stop there on Africa because my time is will be running out soon. Let me share my screen and talk about, this is going to be controversial, but it's very relevant. But before I go on to that, you might say, I'm not living in 1884 or 1885. Fair enough. Now, we've done a lot of work on money and monetary reform, including the videos, our top threads, which are really books, actually, electronic books. My argument is that since 1913, minimum, you had the US Federal Reserve set up at Jekyll and Hyde Island. And then, in other words, we need to understand the history of money. This is not the place, but it's important because people will say we're not living in 1884. But what I'm trying to say is a new system of slavery, if you want to call it that, debt slavery and imperialism was set up, a cage, if you want to call it, with the US Federal Reserve in 1913, and then the rise of what I call fiat currencies, basically paper money without the backing of precious metals, and then something called fractional reserve banking. Basically, what I'm arguing, for those who don't know money, is the whole money system, we have the evidence, is a fraud controlled by a criminal banking mafia. Anyone who wants to dispute that, fine, but we've got all the facts and figures. If you don't understand that, you understand nothing. So basically, the fractional reserve banking is linked to commercial banks who issue loans, create money from nothing. Yeah, I said from nothing. It's all a con. And that's linked to debts. When they loan, it's created as a debt. And and then we've got things in 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement, which set up the IBRD, now the World Bank and IMF. That was to make sure that developing countries who needed money, obviously, were in debt to borrow money. The system is all for, you know, the global south to borrow money because they want to keep you indebted and control you. So that means that politicians are salesmen. They don't really have freedom. And by the way, that includes Trump. I would put him in that category too. He's a salesman. He is not in control of the country, maybe on minor things, but why does he not talk about the US $1 trillion debt? He never talks about that, does he? Tariffs, yeah. Business, but the debt in the country, no, never. And the interest on the debt, never. So because he's not allowed to. And then we've had the petrodollar, where the dollar or the imperial dollar was disconnected from gold, or the floating dollar. And that brings us to now, to the millennium, where we got the decline of the imperial dollar with the Eurasian challenge. So enough on that. But the way they control the world is both at the national level and the international level. So at the national level, you've got riba-based, financial usurious-based banks, which control the economy, not the actual ministers of economy. It's the banks, commercial banks, and dare I say the central bank. And the central banks, can I ask everyone a question instead of rabbiting on? Who knows what, Clive, don't you answer this. What does BIS mean? Does anyone else know? And George, I think we had a chat. Let me ask the others. Does anyone know what BIS means? Well, there you go. If you don't know that, you don't know how the world works. BIS is a Bank of International Settlements in BAL, where all the central banks are interconnected. Not just interconnected, they're controlling global finance and policies. By definition, central banks control, national economies. They control the world. And most of us haven't got a clue. And they control political parties, whether it's commercial banks or central banks. And but that's only one mechanism of control. They also control, we had a great Muslim thinker here, Englishman by the name of Mohammed Rafiq, who worked in the Bank of England. And I think he argued that monetary currencies are also manipulated, not just fiat money, but actual currencies. There's some special books on that, on currency. And then even the terms of the World Trade Organization. And one can argue even gold and silver. Gold and silver, their prices are manipulated. So we're living in a world which is controlled by an elite. Those who control the money, they control everything. Now let me shift to the 10 Commandments and some solutions. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
Let me.
Not yet, but it's coming for sure.
What about now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read this super fast. It's on the Global Vision website. If you look at the date, because it's amazing about blogs or websites. It's
coming.
Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Be here.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So that was dated 24th during the height of the Middle East war.
Yes.
or the genocidal war, in which I've been really outspoken. 8/8/24. Because war is a part of global political economy. You cannot look at war in isolation, because those who are engaged in war, not just the governments, they need to borrow money. So the bankers who I mentioned, who pull the strings, they love war. And so anyway, so here it says the global vision. I talk about a declaration. It's about the century of the 5-season paradigm shift, which I started with. So how do I get rid of these? 1 second, I've got the pictures here. 1 second, minimize. Yeah, that's better. Okay, can you all see that better? Right. So the declaration and the 10 Commandments has been issued today. It offers a global Islamic vision to transform 100 years of defeat. Although this is referring to the Muslim world, it's very relevant to Africa and indeed the Christian world, especially Global South. So please keep that in mind. It was written, in a certain context. So this is still relevant to everyone really in the Global South. So the vision is to transform 100 years of defeat. And I'm talking about, for instance, the Berlin Conference, Sykes-Picot, etc. To transform 100 years of defeat and humiliation to hope and the coming victory of Islam. By Islam, I'm talking about universal Islam. The context is the live streaming of a genocidal war. Unfortunately, that was written a year ago, taking place in Gaza and Palestine, which is unacceptable. Nor is a world controlled by and for 5 non-Muslim powers tolerable any longer. The Muslims constitute 25% of humanity. Even people like Dr. Daffin get it wrong. Even Imran Khan, they talk about 1,000 million. There's 2,000 million Muslims in the world. That's 25%. So the current world is not fit for purpose. Yeah. And what are the 10 Commandments? Very briefly. One is that what I'm hinting at here is that the current world order has failed, because I'm from a business world. Their business model doesn't work. You ask all the people, never mind Gaza, they're starving in the world. Yeah, malnutrition, poverty. It doesn't work.
I'm in a conference, not meeting.
Pardon? Sorry, I heard someone speaking. Is that a question?
No, not you, please. We are listening.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, please mute.
Sorry.
So the current world order, including the UN system, is not fit for purpose. And we're going to get multiple, what's the word? But Gen Z or whatever, the new generation, they're not going to tolerate it. You can see governments falling apart, like Kenya, Nepal, Bangladesh. That's just contextualization. So the current world order is not fit for purpose. So it's dysfunctional. We've got a politics, we would call it political vacuum and void. The Islamic answer to Herzl is being issued today without fear or favor. Okay. I'm going to argue that there is need for a global Khilafat basically for the Christians here, or secularists. It doesn't mean the Islamic State, which was deliberate subversion of Islamic political theory. It means, to keep it simple, the kingdom of God. And I think the kingdom of God can easily include the Jewish and Christian, dimension. So that's what I mean by global Khilafat, a kingdom of God, model, political model. In which all the false gods and the people who control the money, the criminal mafia, are arrested, or if not arrested, they are, booted out, and that will open to barakah, blessing for humanity. Let's leave Palestine out just now. So that's the first commandment. Second commandment, the current world order or key dimension of it, the UN, is based in New York. Second commandment is that it should be moved outside of New York to a neutral what you call venue, although that's not written here, it's contextualized, could be Norway, neutral country, Switzerland, or maybe some other country in the global south. But ultimately, you've got to have a vision. I think it should be Jerusalem. Obviously, I can't fully recommend that in the current context with Zionist control, but I think it should be Jerusalem if you're going to talk about some sort of kingdom of God. And that's why Islam is demonized everywhere with terror, because the criminal mafia know that Muslims have an alternative, but they're associating it with dirt and murder and everything that, the worst of the worst. But that we do have a kingdom of God political theory, and that should basically be headquartered in Jerusalem. In other words, I'm going beyond, some sort of Palestinian state. Indeed, Jerusalem would be very powerful with that global vision. Also, it matches given its, divine history. Third commandment, that Mecca and Medina, when the Ottomans lost control of, the Middle East, that was never, ratified. The Saudis are a family, a tribal family. They were never elected to control the holy places. They came from a region called Riyadh, which the Prophet never blessed when he was talking about end times. So they are cursed, actually. It might surprise you me saying that, but I'm not party political or sectarian. But those cities need to be taken out of control and become international cities. Fourth, that Muslims must withdraw consent from institutions like the UN, IMF, World Bank. There's nothing stopping them. No one's got a gun on the head of those leaders. They can walk out. And you'll say, why? It doesn't work. We don't have anyone in the, Security Council, and it's not solving our problems, like Palestine, for instance. It's not the only place. There's many others. So that means we need to stop surrender to the and accompanying slave mentality to the system, and only then can you decolonize. 5, we obviously, to do that, you need power. In Islam, we have the duty of jihad. It means struggle. I'm not going to pretend like some Muslim interpretation that's to do with spiritual, spiritual purification. No, it's about changing geopolitics. It's both, actually. And this will sum it up. The Prophet Muhammad, who we believe in, was a statesman, but he was engaged in about 50, 60 battles. So jihad is not a dirty word. And the Western world doesn't have a monopoly of violence. Yeah, they like the word non-violence for others who want change, but they're entitled to blow up everyone else. That's just not on. It's cloud cuckoo land. So jihad needs to be resurrected, which has been forgotten and demonized. As Muslims are linked to terror. We know that 9/11 was a nuclear explosion created by the US, Israeli, I call Israel, axis of evil. Because jihad is also linked to power, authority, and sovereignty. And the 6th commandment is you need an army. Jihad is a doctrine. You need an army. I've argued the army from the Muslim world, if we have about 1.8 to 2 billion people, that's about 18 million strong army. But the Christians and indeed Orthodox Jews, if they want a kingdom of God, can join. I'm certainly open to that discussion, because we have to deal with armies like NATO and anyone else for that matter, which are really imperialist armies. 7th commandment, having jihad or the army is not enough. We've got to have real solidarity. If you're attacked, I'm meant to help you if you're in this alliance. We need a mutual collective defense and security pact. I think that's self-explanatory. Eighth commandment is that underpinning both the Black African world, the Islamic world, and dare I say others, is a slave mentality. If not slave mentality, the Prophet mentioned the notion of wahan. Wahan means the excessive love of the world and fear of death. I'm going to contextualize that as cowardice, actually. What I mean is, if you've got a superpower of the white world ruling and using force and violence, to confront that, there is cowardice. So I want to recontextualize the notion of wahan as cowardice. We need to confront the Western civilization's barbarism, brutality, cruelty, oppression, to regain honor and dignity of the non-white world. So the culture, the psychology of defeatism and pessimism, that we can't do anything, needs to be thrown away, and the inferiority complex. Almost finished. Ninth commandment, that's linked to the control of the modern world, the banking system. That right now, right here, right now, everyone here and their organizations can get on with the job. Just do it. I don't have any money. Does that make me poor? No. In other words, get rid of paper money. I use gold. I'm making quite a lot of money, but that's another matter. So get rid of the paper money, and because that ties you with the banking system and related products. Withdraw your consent from a banking, riba means interest-based, usurious banking system and its products, including shares, because it's a controlled casino. And also the currency's paper money, as you all know, you don't need me to tell you, is falling in purchasing power, inflation. So do not carry money. You can do that now, whether you're white or black. And do what with your money? You put it into real assets or gold and silver, God's money. 10th and final point. The 10th commandment is controversial, but I will say that if there is going to be a world war, unfortunately, I am right. I would argue we are in the World War III already. There are various conflicts already happening, maybe not nuclear, but in that context, you're going to get the rise of nationalisms. Like, I'm not surprised with the rise of white nationalism and Trump. And it can get very, very messy. I don't think it's safe for minorities to be in white nationalist Europe. They should get the hell out. That's why I'm in Istanbul. I'll be quite frank with you. In Islamic law, you are, especially not so much white countries, but countries which are at war with Black Africa or the Islamic world, the people should not stay there. They're not safe. And that is the origins of the Islamic calendar, Hijrah. The Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca to Medina because he was not safe. He had to go to another city to build his political base. I think I'm done, and I'll stop there. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Moeen Yaseen, for this excellent presentation. And I would like to welcome Baba Yunus Muhammad. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that the invitation was short notice, but I'm so grateful that you are here with us. Please, you are welcome to Global Peace, and the floor is yours. Baba, if you hear me, Baba Yunus Muhammad.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Please.
I'm having connection issues. because it's raining here. So I may likely put up the the camera to allow stability of the connection because of so that I don't go off completely. Can you hear me?
All right. So far we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I have to do that to allow the connection to be stable. Thank you very much for this kind invitation, and it's an opportunity for me to meet my brotherly scholars and sisters to share ideas. To me, it's an opportunity for me to learn from others, from all of you. I work at the Africa Islamic Economic Forum. We are based in Ghana, but our focus is on the African, continent, where we believe that we have all sort of economic injustices, taking place. So we are on board to assist African governments and civil society organizations to see how we can diversify our economies, maybe introduce elements of Islamic economics or the Islamic economy into our economic system. I think that may likely enhance our economic, fortunes, because in Africa, we are just associated with poverty. Everybody who talks about poverty always points to Africa. So we feel that if we are able to integrate some aspects of Islamic economics into our economic thinking, maybe we could have helped in one way or the other to bring stability to our economic, policies. So now, let me go straight to my presentation. My presentation is about the Islamic economy, from divine command to global economic force. Why I say this is this: we are talking about a divine command because Islamic economics derive its principles from the Holy Quran. Okay. It derives its sources from the Holy Quran. So if you look at, there are some, sorry, please. There are some two verses that I'm going to just work upon. The Islamic economy represents more than a set of financial practices. It is a holistic ethical framework grounded in divine guidance and aimed at achieving justice, fairness, and communal welfare. Now, when we talk about Islamic economics, what comes to mind is Islamic banking. But always I argue that Islamic banking is just a subset, in fact, the tiniest of the sets of it within the Islamic economic system. But then, as you know, it has to be based on something because it is rooted in Quranic injustice, such as Surah An-Nahl, that's chapter 16. Chapter 16, verse 114 to 116. The system of the halal consumption and trade is presented as a divine command. The Quran says, so eat of what Allah has provided for you, lawful and good, and be grateful for the favor of Allah. But say not falsehood forged by your tongues. This is lawful and this is forbidden, so as to invent lies against Allah. These verses emphasize gratitude, honesty, and adherence to ethical limits. Over time, this divine guidance has informed not only personal consumption, but also complex economic systems, including halal industries, Islamic finance, political economy, and ethical commerce, and now influence global markets worth trillions of dollars. In a globalized economy marked by inequality and environmental stress, Islamic economic principles offer both a moral compass and practical tools for sustainable development. By tracing the journey from divine command to global economic force, this paper examines four interconnected domains. One, Quranic foundations of economic ethics. Second, the halal economy as a global industry. Third, the Islamic finance and ethical investment. And fourth, the political economy shaped by Islamic values. It also highlights the Islamic economy's relevance to contemporary challenges and its potential contributions to fairer, more inclusive markets. Let's talk about the Quranic, foundations. Wealth distribution matters a lot in Islam. In the first surah, Surah Al-Hashr, that's chapter 16, it warns of wealth. It warns that wealth should not circulate only among the rich. And zakat, an Islamic system of giving to the poor, turns this principle into action, reducing poverty and strengthening community bonds. Scholars frame these teachings as maqasid Sharia, than the purposes of the Sharia, balancing market freedom with social responsibility. In short, trade and consumption are acts of worship when guided by ethics. When we go to the halal economy itself also, we discover that the halal is not just about food. I remember in the 80s when I was in the UK, we started this halal movement then through the Muslim Parliament under the leadership of late Dr. Karim Siddiqui. I remember one day I was walking around the Eastern Station. So one lady was just inviting me to visit her restaurant, telling me that they have halal foods and other things. So the idea, and there was also another debate about slaughter of animals, whether to slaughter it with a knife or whatever, or whether to inject it. So all these debates were there. So it has to, these type of debates have reduced the concept of halal to only foods. But now halal spans the pharmaceutical industry, cosmetics, tourism, fashion, logistics, and digital services. So it's not just restricted to food. And the global halal economy is now worth over $2 trillion annually. Halal certification, because if I refer, when I started, I mentioned in one verse that Allah was telling us that we should not forge lies against the Almighty Allah by saying that this is halal or not halal. So we have, there's a concept in place which emphasizes certification so that nobody should just get up from his house and say, no, this one is halal, this is not halal. We have a process to be able to know that this thing is halal compliant or not. So we go through a system called halal certification, which is more than quality control. It is an ethical commitment ensuring that products are lawfully produced, safe, and responsibly produced. Halal food supply chains emphasize humane treatment and transparent labeling, values that resonate with sustainability-minded consumers. Halal tourism also is growing. Hotels now provide halal dining, prayer facilities, and alcohol-free environments. But fragmented certification creates confusion and trade barriers. So global standardization is needed. So I think we should see how we can work towards a global standard of halal certification. Now, as I'm talking to you, We have various halal certification bodies in the world. You have the Malaysian model, you have the Singaporean, you have Nigeria, Egypt, Dubai, and so we have so many. So what may be halal to me in Nigeria may not be halal for a person in the United Kingdom. So I think we are trying to work or emphasize, calling for a standardization of the halal certification process. Now, when we go to the fourth issue, Islamic finance and ethical investment. Islamic finance, as we all know, is a sophisticated expression of Quranic ethics. It prohibits riba, that's usury, gharar, excessive uncertainty, and maisir, gambling, while promoting fairness, risk sharing, and transparency. The key instruments of Islamic finance and ethical investment include mudaraba, that's profit sharing, and musharaka, that's joint ventures for equitable risk distribution. And another one is sukuk, that's Islamic bonds, which is asset-backed and tied to the real economy. Islamic finance spans banking, capital markets, and insurance, with hubs in Malaysia, the Gulf states, and the United Kingdom. It increasingly intersects with ESG investing. Proven Islamic efforts can complement global sustainability goals. Critics warn that some products mimic conventional finance or exclude the poor. A reminder to stay true to justice and inclusion. This conference will not allow me to present how the Islamic finance work. Maybe I will suggest to the organizers, maybe one day you can give us a complimentary, maybe a webinar, so that I can come back and just deal with the issue. So that we just take the instruments one after the other and see how the ideas are developed, the theories are developed. I mean, not to look at it theoretically, and also to look at how it is practiced. And then we go to political economy. The Quranic guidance shapes governance too. Zakat is not just charity, but a redistribution tool ensuring social cohesion. Historically, we had what we call Beit Mal, that's the public treasury during the Prophet's time, and even during the four rightly guided caliphs. It funded welfare, infrastructure, and defense, while remaining accountable to divine principles. Model examples can be found in Malaysia, which integrates, where Islamic finance is integrated into national development, while Pakistan enshrines Islamic economics in its constitution. The challenge today is that balancing Sharia ethics with global capitalism is almost very difficult. Maybe we are very soon, maybe before the end of the year, my organization is trying to organize a virtual event on this global capitalism and the need for Africa to adopt Islamic economics as an alternative economic system. So far, when we talk of an alternative economic system to capitalism, what comes to mind is Marxism, socialism, or Marxism. So we feel that the time has come for us to present the Islamic alternative also as a model. Possibly there may be room for accommodation. We also have the global impact and interfaith relevance. The Islamic economy is a multi-trillion-dollar global force. Halal certified goods are found worldwide, and sukuk bonds are issued on daily basis in London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo. Its spread is universal. Values like fairness, benevolence, and environmental care resonate beyond Muslim communities. Islamic ethics align with fair trade and corporate social responsibility, offering a bridge between faiths and cultures. So tools like Waqf and Islamic finance contribute to UN Sustainable Development Goals, supporting poverty reduction and responsible growth. Challenges and opportunities. Despite its successes, challenges remain. As I've mentioned earlier, we have fragmented halal certification and inconsistent Sharia interpretations. These things contribute to hinder confidence. We also have perception barriers, seeing Islamic economics as purely religious, limited option. Here, we need to mention that the halal is just about sustainability. So it's not just limited to only Muslims. I can even say that even most of the major markets of the halal, industry in the West. So I think it's not just about Islam. I mean, being a Muslim or non-Muslim. No, it's for everybody. And we also have technological disruption. Fintech and blockchain offers transparency and inclusion, but raises new compliance questions. Geopolitical instability can also affect growth. Yet opportunities abound, like harmonizing standards will boost global trade. So I think if the Islamic world, or even the countries which have adopted the Islamic economy, for example, countries like Malaysia, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia and others, if they can harmonize standards, I think can boost trade, and rather than having fragmented certification trade models and others. And also some of the opportunities also are using Islamic finance for climate action and poverty reduction. Because if we do that, I believe it can enhance its relevance and cross-faith collaboration. Cross-faith collaboration can position Islamic economics as a leader in ethical globalization. That's why I feel that it is very, very important we formalize our relationship with this organization, the host of this event. I think having gone through some of the things you do, I think we have wider room to play and to collaborate with each other. And I believe that wherever you talk about peace, there must be prosperity. Without prosperity, there can be peace. Some of these crises we are having in Africa, banditry, criminal activities, war, sectarian wars, they are all associated with poverty and inequality. So if we can have a system where fairness and justice and economic prosperity can be made possible in our societies and communities, certainly we could have done a lot to reduce this bloody conflicts that we have today. In conclusion, the Islamic economist journey from divine command to global force demonstrates the enduring relevance of Quranic ethics. Verses like the Surah An-Nahl remind us that consumption and trade, guided by fairness and gratitude, are acts of worship. From halal industry to Islamic finance and public policy, these principles influence trillions of dollars worldwide. More importantly, they present commerce and governance centered on justice, equity, and social welfare, an alternative to profit-only systems. So in the world grappling with inequality, environmental crisis, and economic instability, the Islamic economy proves that markets are not just value neutral. Justice and fairness must remain at the heart of economic life, a message which is relevant to all communities. Thank you very much indeed. This is just a summary of my paper. I will share the paper with the organizers of this event so that it can be distributed, it can be shared among participants. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Baba Yunus Muhammad, for this excellent presentation. And now I would like to ask participants on this call for questions or comments on these two presentations on this new paradigm shift, universal paradigm shift, And Evelyn, please, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, very interesting presentations. And I see that they are speaking to the golden rule, to the essence versus the dogma of religion. And my question is, when I hear the system being moved to Jerusalem or even Switzerland, aren't we replacing one hierarchy with another? Because that really speaks to the children of the book. And what about Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, which are equally implicated in this and represent a much larger proportion of the world? So I'm interested in how in your system you are also accommodating more than the children of the book. And I'm also a bit hesitant as a woman. Again, this is a caricature, and I apologize for my limited knowledge. But I look at Afghanistan, which appears to be the first country that is totally adopting the principles of Islam. And as a woman, it leaves me very nervous. So I wonder if you could address that. Thank you.
Presumably that's addressed to me. George, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead,
yes,
please.
I take it the question's addressed to me, obviously. Okay. Firstly, I hope you understand why I said that the United Nations, which is some sort of symbol for global peace and security, should be moved. You know, it is being weaponized and manipulated by a white nationalist, Christian Zionist orientated, what you call leadership. Its time is overdue. Indeed, it's totally unacceptable that the Palestinian leadership was refused a visa. This is just beyond a joke. And also the bribery and blackmail of hundreds, maybe, of countries who are wanting US patronage because of the US-controlled IMF World Bank system, which enslaves and indebts countries, they keep their mouths shut. You know, many countries, smaller countries, not to upset the US. So anyway, that's why my argument was to move the UN, if you're going to have a UN, if you're going to have it, you know, one can make a case not to.
This is the business.
Pardon? So can
I? Go ahead. I think that was an. Continue, please.
So that was my argument about the UN is not fit for purpose, it's being weaponized and abused because you can't look at the UN in isolation of the IMF and World Bank, which is also, you know, US controlled, and indeed the army, you know, the military force, all those bases, 800 US bases in the world. Now, but your question wasn't that, it was about Jerusalem. Now, we have done 12 events on eschatology, interfaith eschatology. And what is eschatology? It's about the study of the future of the world, but based on some, you know, the religious scriptures, especially the Jewish Torah, Christian Bible, and Islamic Quran, and related, sources. Now, all of them mention that we argue we are in end times, although it's got phases, it's going to be Jerusalem. Jerusalem is going to be the capital of the world. So ultimately, you know, I'm maybe one step ahead because it's controlled by a Zionist, genocidal, Dajjalic, satanic regime. You can all see it now. Is that although it's not, you know, the right time, but there's nothing stopping us to preparing for that, And or maybe in the interim, it can be maybe, as I said, what you call Oslo, or sorry, Norway or Switzerland. You can have a phase, but that still doesn't address your question. Of course, this This new Center for World Governance, that's what it would be, or city. Actually, the city, let me clarify that. The city of Jerusalem, not just a building, would become the center of world governance. You know, other buildings and, you know, holy places, yeah? And within that context, yes, we can or should, you know, if you're going to be serious about the world, we can and should develop a formula. Yeah, you know, I'm talking about a new situation to accommodate other faiths, which are not what you call from a monotheistic tradition. The monotheistic tradition is a Judeo-Christian Islamic, but whether it's Buddha, Hindu, or Confucius, they can be accommodated. And that comes back to my century of the 5 C's consciousness. In the Islamic philosophy of Tawheed, oneness, we believe there was only one religion conveyed by 100, listen carefully, 124,000 prophets, messengers. So we believe that whether it's Buddha, Buddhism, Confucianism, or whatever, yeah, Hinduism, there was the body. Actually, if you study them carefully, I've done it to some extent, but maybe not to a great extent, they do have a notion of some sort of supreme being. But obviously, they have gone from a monotheistic perspective haywire. If not haywire, they have gone into polytheistic, etc. Tendencies. But anyway, regardless of that, they can be accommodated and respected. So because we're talking about a new paradigm, we have to be flexible and it has to be universal and global. On women, the Taliban, the expression of Islam, I mentioned even Muslim experts don't even know how many Muslims there are in the world. We got 2,000 million. Even Dr. George Daffin in his writings, yeah, Philosophy of Religion, mentions 1,000 million. Even Imran Khan, I'm sure I heard him say 1,000 million. There are 2,000 million Muslims. What's the point? The point is that the expression of Islam globally varies. In other words, you cannot generalize based on the Afghan, what you call, society, which is a tribal society, has been isolated historically. You cannot generalize from that their experience that is how women are treated in Islam. And if they are, we also believe in end times there is going to be a Muslim leader. His nickname, that is, Mahdi, the rightly guided, he will be reforming various misunderstandings of Islam. And one of them is scholars who've erred or misinterpreted the religion. And if it includes the abuse of women's rights, of course, that will be also rectified. I hope that clarifies your question.
All right, so let's take like 3 questions or comments, starting with Clive, then Richard and Eda, and then Janet. Clive, please. Please unmute your microphone, Clive.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? Thank you very much, and thanks for the presentations. I posted in the chat an article we were invited to comment on a paper by Bernard Lietaer on global monetary reform in 2017. I posted the link in the chat. And in that, we describe what is essentially 3 essential flaws in the way that the world has evolved. And one of those flaws is hierarchy. And the concept of world governance, to our mind, is a complete antipathy to, if you like, a spiritually based way of living. The way we've organized ourselves for the last 5,000 years or so has centered on using money. And money is a very clumsy proxy for the way we lived for most of our existence as modern humans, because it divides us. It doesn't, value is essentially comprised of two components, somebody's need and somebody's capacity. And in our modern economy, we do not value need. And so somebody's need is essential if you have the capacity or the productive capacity to supply something. You can create something, but if nobody wants it, then it has no value. So the first problem with our money-based system is that it doesn't value need. And the third flaw is that the concept of the commons, in other words, land, air, water, all the things that have been created communally by human beings over the ages, they belong to all of us. And the concept of ownership of the commons is, if you like, the third flaw. The good news is that in our work since 2017, we've been exploring the whole concept of value and money and how that is changing. And so the paradigm shift that we allude to, and I put a link to the website on which we record quite a lot of our work, talks about a paradigm shift of a far more fundamental and radical nature than what's been discussed. Money as gold is no more spiritual than anything else. At the time that the concept of divine money in the Quran was established, there was no other way of actually expanding or scaling the unique attributes that one shared within a small community. You would understand people's needs, capacities, their strengths, their weaknesses, their everything about them. But you couldn't extend that beyond the boundaries of the tribe or the community, say 150 people. And so money was adopted as a proxy to enable us to conduct affairs at scale. But with it, we paid a heavy price. And I'm not saying that it was a mistake, but it is certainly no longer fit for purpose, as we have seen. It's a single point of failure. We always have economic resets, which involve a great deal of distress and hardship for many people. But the good news is that we now have the tools and technology to scale that, what we describe as family and small group methodology, we can live as a global family. And that is really essential, that at the point of activity within your community, your family, whatever, you are the best judges of what is good for you. When you have a hierarchy that is so disassociated from the point of impact of their decisions, it is no wonder that so many people are disadvantaged. So I think we need to be looking at a far more fundamental paradigm shift than just a change of hierarchy or relying on people's morality or religious spirituality. We need to have a structure which is in harmony with universal law, which is essentially love. And that would be my, if you like, reservation about what's being proposed in terms of a caliphate or any other form of hierarchy, because at the point of impact, that's where all of these decisions actually create problems, death, destruction. And we're witnessing the death and destruction of the existing structure, because for something new to emerge, death and destruction are an inevitable precursor. So I think we are going through a paradigm shift, but what we're moving into is something so radically different from what has been described thus far. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Clive. And Richard and Edda.
George, you want a quick response to that before we forget his points?
Could you? Okay, quick one, please.
Yeah, because we might forget the flow. There's a lot in what Clive has said, which I respect. You know, he's a he's a astute monetary thinker from the City of London, and he's spoken at our events. I just want to make I want to just tackle one issue. I accept the point about the commons, which has been monopolized or hijacked in all societies. But on hierarchy, I think we need a genuine discussion. In the Islamic model of community, I mentioned the century of the 5 C's, based on a lot of thinking and historical research. I mentioned consciousness, communications, connectivity, and communities of collaboration. That was over 25 years ago. It's not new. The point, just to flesh that, what that means, I didn't say nations of collaboration, that's at a different level. But communities of collaboration should be centered, if you're talking about a divine kingdom, at the micro level, you know, neighborhood level. And in faith-based communities, whether it's the mandir, the Hindus, the stupa, the church, synagogue, mosque, they're in, you know, everywhere, in neighborhoods. However, the problem is that the notion of religion, as an ex-teacher, is that religion, due to Western civilization and its imperialist outreach in particular, as well as maybe distortion of religious thinking within religions, is very, very narrow. You know, it's ritual, you know, worship. So these mosques, or sorry, these religious buildings, centers, need to widen their outreach and mission, and not just to worship and education, but to trade. Why not? To legal disputes, husband and wife, families, custody, divorce, education, transactions. They're not. So I would argue that the role of the religious institution and leadership needs to be revamped. But that also leads to a redefinition of the role and function of religion. So that's that at the city level or neighborhood level. That doesn't clash with the need at some sort of leadership level, at the national and international level. You know, we need leaders, whether you like them or not. You know, we're humans, and human societies are structured that way. So that's all I want to say. Right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Richard, please.
Yes, thank you so much for counting me in. Good afternoon from Ghana. I'm very much happy that at least we are bringing in the meaning of peace with respect to Islamic religion, with respect to religion, not Islamic alone. One thing I want us to notice is that when with religion, the kingdom is just the body, the human body. But religion, but it's just the body. The kingdom is just the body part, and not the world of ours. So, if we think maybe Israel should be the kingdom of the world, in fact, we may be making a mistake. If we think UK should be the kingdom of the world, we may make a mistake. If we think US should be the kingdom, or Africa should be the kingdom of the world, it may be a mistake. I think we collectively, through our activities, before a kingdom is instituted, and it could be any place at all. It could be even the poorest country. So that is what I want us that is what I want to put to our discussion today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. Eda, and then Janet will be the last person to make a comment today before we invite our speakers to give us some concluding remarks. Eda, please.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I have two concerns. One is pedagogical, and the question is, how do we teach for peace or we teach about peace? So I'm thinking of religious-oriented solutions to the chaos in the world. There is good in religion and there is bad in religion. Those of you following news in United States now, you are aware of this young man who was shot in Utah. There is no room for lost lives. But honestly, as a teacher, what am I supposed to teach about love, about peace for peace, when his death has been politicized and religion used to oppress the powerless? That is just something we need to think about. I have respect for religion when it works. A lot of disrespect for religion for what it does. And I'm just wondering, as peace practitioners, peace educators, how we deal with this. One time I asked my students to listen to the lyrics of John Lennon's Imagine. And one student was very upset with me for presenting material that threatened their religion, or no, their essence of being religious, suggesting a world with no religion. You can imagine how I was caught off guard. We leave that there, but it's something to think about. Number two, the first presenter highlighted decolonial, post-colonial, anti-colonial approaches to fighting whiteness, to fighting global oppression of people that are non-white. I would like to suggest very strongly that feminist approach, as Evelyn suggested, is so crucial in world peace. When we have all these frameworks, when we have any paradigm shift, if it doesn't include feminist thought, we are not going to be very happy as women, because we bear every face of violence, every face of name it, we bear it. And our voices must be heard. When we say something, we want to be listened to, because we know what peace is, and we selflessly go out there and do things that are shameful, but we swallow that shame, like talking how women talk about violence, how they've been raped, how they've bared children of rape. They do that. They swallow their pride, they swallow their shame in order to make the world a better place. Feminist, critical feminist approach must be right there in all these approaches to find a better world. Religion, economics, and all that, I respect that. But feminism has to be there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eda. Janet, you're welcome. And then one last chance will be for Abdullahi. Janet, please.
I very much appreciate the comments. As a feminist peace educator centered in love, I can hardly relate to most of what you said. As a person who's visited Jerusalem and seen how utterly militarized it is, and how the potential of three religions right there could be a model for the world, I'm just astounded at how wasted this opportunity is. So those are my comments. Thank you for everyone else's comments. And my question is, which I don't think you may have time to answer, but
wow, thank you so much.
Wait, my question is almost done, is how do you reconcile advocating jihad with arguing that the militarized economies are doing us in? Okay, I think that's more than a 1 minute answer, but let's everyone hold this question. Thank you. Thank you, George.
And thank you so much, Janet. And then Abdullahi, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much, Chair, and the panel, the speakers and the participants. My contribution, this is a great topic, and there is a great platform where scholars from different cultural backgrounds are really exchanging. I think, Chair, peace can easily be found in this world if we are honest, sincere, and we value what we call respect of international laws, principles, and practices that are put in place. Peace can easily be found because, Chair, I must say that, for example, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, paganism, or polytheism have coexisted. And in that particular time, there is no such social injustices that is prevailing in 21st century during the 7th century. So, and one concept is wrong, it does not exist. There is no movement to bring the Khalifa back to the world, Chair. What is happening is, for example, I'm a Muslim, I must say this, that Muslims want to really be governed by the what we can call the ideological fundamental principle prescribed by their creator, which is the creator of the universe. And if, for example, the globe community will respect and ensure justice is achieved, there'll be no problem. But today, Chair, for example, in my own country, for example, and what we can call a law is being imposed to bring in foreign, what you can call practices, which is contrary to my African culture or my religious belief. That will create reactions. So two things: respect of international laws that governs countries and institutions, and then upholding of social justice, even if it is against one's own parent or children. I must close it like this, Chair. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that if Fatima, my daughter, steal people's property, I will cut off her right hand. Today, is that possible in the royal families? That will be for our next thought. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And Peter, please. And then I'll invite Baba Muhammad and Moeen to conclude.
Thank you very much. I lived on the campus of Ahmadu Bello University in 1963 and 4. Just as background for my question, is it Baba or is it Baba?
I don't know whether Baba is here.
Yes.
Baba is
Baba,
a family
there?
name, you know. Yeah, I'm there. Yeah, Baba Yunus.
Okay. My last association with one named Baba was the vice chancellor of St. Paul's College in Musasa, a few miles through the bush from Ahmadu Bello, where I went to school. He was a harsh disciplinarian. And when in the morning, when we were getting ready for class, someone would whisper, "Papa's coming." And instantly, we were in our seats, bolt upright, hands folded, awaiting the presence. And he would do strange things like when he was writing on the blackboard, the chalk would break, and there would be the sound of 40 boys beginning to say, "Sorry, sir." But they would get as far as, "Sir," and he would catch the piece before it hit the floor. And there was terrified silence, and he would turn around and look at us and slowly smile. Okay, enough stories, but I agree with most of the analysis. I'm troubled by the assumptions that seem to be in the implementation end of things, particularly that a paradigm is amenable to shifting by human beings who are living in a paradigm. Because I think definitionally, the paradigm is reality to those living in it. And to bring about a new paradigm, you cannot do it by changing the old one. I won't go farther than that, but just wanted to put that thought in. Thank you so much. It's so great to make this connection and to remember those old times.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr.
Yeah,
Peter,
thank you so
much. I'm in Zaria at the moment, and I work at ABU.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, I taught at the Center for Adult Education. Maybe you remember Dubela Osman and the rest. I also know that college you are talking about in Musasa.
I don't know if it's still there, but I think Sonny Abacha went there after me.
Yeah, Bala Osman is dead. You know, he's late now.
Yeah. Most everybody I knew then was dead. I went to England in 2019 and found a couple that I had known there now in their 90s. Hadn't seen them for 50 years. Anyway, we don't need to. It's just very good to see.
Yeah, it's a pleasure meeting you as well.
Yeah, Baba Yunus, could you give us just in a minute, please?
Well, thank you very much indeed. I've said it all, that this is an opportunity for us to rub minds. But I mean, your work is quite important for the continent. But I just must say that we should emphasize on policies that will bring prosperity to people. Let us try to see. We can't just wake up one day and say we are doing away with this what we call Western-inspired economic policies. No, we can't do that one. But then we have to just try some alternative, methods like the Islamic economy and others. And my sister mentioned whether it can accommodate everybody. Yes, Islam is, we recognize all the prophets sent by God at one time or the other. So we emphasize that. I mean, I should just encourage you to do more on the economic field, and our organization is ready to collaborate with you to achieving that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Baba Yunus Muhammad. Moeen, please, also for 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of questions. That's why we're having the 12th Global Vision Eschatology Conference. Eschatology, we all have a birth, adulthood, old age, death. Same with civilization. We've had Spengler, Ibn Khaldun, great thinkers, Islamic and Western. The point I'm making is we have the rise of civilizations and the fall. What we're seeing is the decline of the West. I don't want to go into that just now. After what, 400 years, 400 or 500 years, and the rise of the non-Western world. The point I'm trying to make is that when civilizations of the global South, lost power, it led to decadence, basically. Decadence, deviance, very narrow interpretations of religion, maybe oppression of various people or sections like women, perhaps, So the point I'm making is the situation is changing, and the global South, there's many evidences that BRICS, etc., the rise of China, oil wealth, etc., that they are reviving and reforming, and there's a renaissance. So the point I'm making is there will be, in the Islamic view, Khilafah coming back. The gentleman who said there's going to be no Khilafah doesn't understand Islamic civilization. This is in the prophecy, clear prophecies in the book of, people may differ, but you're talking about people who've studied the Islamic civilization, Quran and Hadith. I'll even give you the source. Those are nodding. The book is the book of Fitan, Kitab al-Fitan, the book of trial and tribulation. In Islamic civilization, the age of imperialism and dictatorship will be swept away, and the Imam Mahdi will come. It's even mentioned where he's going to come: Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, Damascus. There is going to be a golden age in which poverty will be eliminated. He will have a very strong global political economic agenda based on Islamic thinking and the return of real money. So that's all I want to say about that. It's a very profound issue, the rise and fall of civilization and how religion should be fully understood. I agree. It has got a narrow interpretation by vested interests, narrow, and the religion should, I agree, be seen as a liberating force, maybe as a vision. That is global vision's analysis on religion. Religion should not just cement injustice and status quo. It is there as a tool to liberate society and have socio-economic justice. But that has been sabotaged. That has been sabotaged. That needs to return, and it will return.
All right. Thank you so much indeed, Moeen, Yaseen, and Baba Yunus Mohammed, for your wonderful presentations. And I thank also everybody here and for raising good questions and for your comments. Thank you for your presence. I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday. Thank you so much, and goodbye for now.
Yeah, okay.